everyone. If you're new around here, my name is Ivy Corvus, and this video is going to be the 2-year anniversary celebration of this channel. I can't believe it has been 2 years on YouTube already. Also, it kind of coincides with 40,000 subscribers. Oh my gosh, that is such a massive milestone. They both kind of happened within the same month in January. At the time of filming this, January of 2024. It has been 2 years and this channel just hit that 40,000 subscriber mark. I cannot believe that. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone's support. I'm really excited to answer your questions today. So I had posted on my community tab asking if you had any occult questions, and it didn't even have to be related to the occult. It can be personal questions about my own life and my own practice. There were so many questions, and I'm actually going to go through, read the questions, and try to answer as many as I can. I don't think I'm going to be able to answer all of them. I basically have my whole setup today. I've got my beverage, I've got snacks, I've got like all of it ready to go, and I'm just going to film. I'm going to keep filming until my social battery is like totally dead. So I'm going to try to get through as many questions as I can. Couple things I wanted to say before I start answering questions is, the first one is, if you're new, I tend to talk very fast. I try my hardest to speak slower. This is actually me dialing it back and speaking way slower than I normally would speak. So if it's still too fast for you, because I do have a lot of people comment saying that I talk too fast, I'm sorry you guys, it's just how I am. I cannot make my mouth go slower than this. So there's a slow down button on YouTube where you can reduce the playback speed to 0.75, and that seems to help a lot of people when listening to my videos. I've always been a fast talker. I enjoy other people that talk fast. I'm ready to go. Another thing I wanted to say is I woke up this morning, I gotta show you guys. I woke up this morning with new gray hairs, like a big sprout of gray hairs. They're only right here. You don't even understand how excited this makes me, because one, I acknowledge I have a baby face, and everyone always thinks that I'm a lot younger than I actually am because my face is very baby, right? But let me see. Can you see all those gray hairs right there? I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up or not, but I am so excited. I cannot wait to be a crone. I am ready to go into that next phase. Anyways, just had to share that with you. I'm also in a really good mood today because I just killed it in my classes this morning. I did a really good job in one of my labs, and I'm just really pleased with myself. So I thought it was the perfect time to sit down and film this video. So I'm also going to structure this video just a little bit differently than the ones I have done in the past. I'm going to try to structure this by question rather than category. So there will be timestamps on this video. If you find a question just really isn't interesting for you, feel free to skip ahead. And then also for people looking for their question, I'll have it in the timestamp so you can easily find your question, except for this first category, because there were actually a couple questions about my personal relationship. So I might as well just get those out of the way and kind of lump them all together. So this first category, I'm just going to be talking about my personal relationship, and then we'll talk about everything else as far as occultism and witchcraft and all that delicious paranormal stuff goes. So the first question is, how involved is your partner in your practice? You mentioned that they have participated as a source of energy for you, but have they been involved in any sort of ritual or magical working? So my partner he's very spiritual. So we actually met when we were both Buddhists. I would say that I was way more of an active Buddhist than he was. It was something that he kind of passively believed in, but it wasn't something like he was meditating every day, going to a temple, you know, he wasn't really doing that kind of stuff, whereas I was. So we already met kind of as spiritual people, but for him, I've explained to him magical practices before, and he says if anything, he would probably be a chaos magician, because he kind of believes in the same thing that I do. He is very spiritual and very intellectual, just not interested in the actual practical side of things. He's not really interested in doing a spell or doing a ritual, but he does listen to paranormal podcasts. You know, he's really interested in listening to anything that involves Aleister Crowley, which is so funny because I am so the opposite with that. I really don't care. But yeah, so our dynamic is weird because I am way more immersed in the practical than he is, but it's not something that he's totally disinterested in. So I've kind of tried to bring him in some rituals, but it's just not his thing. It's just, no offense to my partner if he's watching this right now, but he does not know how to direct his energy. He does not know. So he basically just works, if we do a ritual together, he's basically just like a battery for me. He gives me, I instruct him what to do, he gives me his energy, and then I funnel both of our energies towards the goal, if that makes sense. But we really don't do a lot of rituals together. Sometimes if I read something new in the occult community, I'll share it with him and he'll be like, oh, that's really cool. But yeah, apart from that, this is my obsession. It is not his obsession whatsoever. Next question is, how long have you and your husband been together? How did you meet? What is y'all's story? Because I had shared like some bachelorette wedding clips and I introduced him briefly on this channel in a video way back when we got married in October. It was really funny because for those that don't know, I'm not straight. I'm a pansexual woman, and I was actually trying to date women, and then all of a sudden I ended up dating a man again. So I told him, I was like, you are the last man that I will ever be with, because I told him that I wanted to be with other women. I can't believe I'm sharing this right now. It's so funny the moment that you go out and try to date with, I've noticed this in so many other people, the moment you try to switch to the same team, you end up right back where you started. I know so many women have gone through that. So we met on a dating site. I was open to both at the time, and I'm usually like a very aggressive initiator, and so I messaged him just because I thought he was cute. I was like, you know what, why not? I'll message him, he's cute. So I messaged him, I asked him out on a date, and pretty much the entire relationship, I'm the one that has initiated it. We kind of like joke around a little bit because he's so introverted and soft-spoken. He's a very, very quiet man, and he has told me before that he's like, I was just waiting for someone like you to come into my life and just tell me what we're doing now. And I was like, that's great. Let me just swoop in and say, we're going here now, let's go. But yeah, I was the one that initiated exclusivity. After we've been dating for a couple months, I looked at him and I was like, are you gonna ask me to be your girlfriend, or like what's going on here? And he was like, oh yeah, I thought that's what we were already doing. And I was like, cool, glad we had that little chat. So nothing super romantic or anything. We met on a dating site, I initiated, we fell in love, we did the whole thing. Oh, we've been together for almost 6 years. So we were together for a long time before actually getting married, but like we had bought a house before that. We have a dog together, which is basically like our pre-child, you know? We're not interested in having any biological children. That's just not our thing. But we do have like a little family unit. So yeah, that is our story. I keep trying to get him back on a video because y'all loved him. Some of you guys loved him in the comments. That video that I shared at the end when I introduced him to all of you, there were so many people in the comments that were like, oh, he's handsome. And it was so funny because I showed him the comments of that video, and of course he gets like very bashful, he's very shy, and he's like, oh, I don't believe that. So anyways, if you want to comment, Mr. Corvus, you're so cute, I'll show him all the comments under this video as well. But yeah, I keep trying to get him on a video, but he's just so shy. I don't know, maybe at some point, but we'll see. What are some books that really influenced your practice, or maybe one book that was most influential? Oh my gosh, that is the hardest question. Let's see. Let me pull down a couple books and I'll be right back. Okay, this is way too hard. I pulled down a couple. I only spent like a minute pulling out books that were really influential to my practice. You know what? I should do a video about this. I should really go through all the books that kind of shaped my practice over the years. First one, obviously, I'm gonna go with The Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn really shaped my practice when I was originally going into ceremonial magic a long time ago. I did not have this copy, but the content in here really began my ceremonial practice forever ago. And then even when I left the ceremonial magic scene and I came more back into witchcraft and then chaos magic, I still get inspiration for my chaos magic rituals from this Golden Dawn book, from some of the rituals in here. It really does inspire me. So even if you're not a ceremonial magician, even if you just like understanding, there's so many branches of occultism that have branched off because of the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn is woven into so many modern day traditions that you would be very, very surprised to know about. So yeah, I would say that this was pretty influential for me. I would say Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, which is in the other room, is also another set of books that really inspired my occult practice. I think that the 3 books of occult philosophy by Agrippa, that's just a staple that any occultist really needs. I would also say this ceremonial magic book really helped shape my practice. I love how this is put together. So it's Llewellyn's complete book of ceremonial magic. It gives you like a little taste of a bunch of different traditions, so you can figure out maybe what you resonate with most. Practical Planetary Magic. This book is a gem. It's by David Rankine and Sarita de Este, one of my favorite practical planetary magic books. If you want to go into planetary magic, get this book for sure. Holistic Tarot by Benabel Wen. This thing is so huge. This is one of my favorite tarot books. Dare I say my favorite tarot book of all time? I don't know. I really, really love this book. I really feel like it had an impact on my practice. The last one I grabbed, this book is just, I can bring myself back to that moment when I read this book for the first time, and it completely changed my perspective on things. It's called Eastern Body, Western Mind, and this is by Anodea Judith. And I don't have time to give a full book review here, but this is on psychology and the chakra system as a path to the self. A lot of people say chakra, it's actually chakra. And I know that there is a lot of misrepresentation of chakras when they gravitated from the east to the west. So much cultural context was lost, and it's really unfortunate. I felt like the author did a really good job of bringing light to all of that while also incorporating some new modalities like psychology into this. So I really, really, I loved this book so much for personal development. This is not just a book on chakras. This is a book to completely understanding your body and your mind and really approaching it from an Eastern and a Western perspective combined. So this was so helpful for my shadow work and just healing myself from within. So, I can't say enough good things about this book. I just had to run downstairs and grab more books because I need to do this question justice. I need to add more books to this list. Okay, Chaos Magic. I can't not include these two books, obviously. Condensed Chaos by Phil Hine, Libernal and Psychonaut by Peter Carroll. I love Condensed Chaos. I mean, Peter Carroll, the founder of Chaos Magic, this is obviously a staple. You have to read it if you're interested in Chaos Magic. However, many people find this very difficult to read. So I really, really, really love Condensed Chaos. I think Phil Hine did an exceptional job making Chaos Magic a little bit more approachable. So I would definitely say that shaped my practice. I gotta go with Dion Fortune for the mystical Kabbalah. So if you're interested in Kabbalah, which a lot of practices, again, like we're talking about the Golden Dawn, a lot of practices have influence from Kabbalah, and even if it's not something you're interested in or you feel drawn to, I think it's important to understand the historical context. So I loved this book. It was definitely impactful for me. I also have to say Carl Jung, of course. Carl Jung and his psychological archetypes and collective unconscious ideas really influenced my practice a lot. So really anything by Carl Jung. I just grabbed my archetypes and the collective unconscious one, but he also has a bunch of alchemy texts. I mean, anything by this guy, anything. If you are interested in psychology and the occult, go look up Carl Jung if you haven't already. Two other books. Oh my God, I'm taking so long to answer this one question. I just want to be really thorough as I can be. You Are the Placebo. This book is so controversial. Some people hate this book and think it's pseudoscience bullshit. I loved it. I thought this book is not on magic or the occult at all. This is by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he's basically talking about how we can change our brain structures and literally heal our bodies through the power of meditation. And it sounds a little new agey, but this totally blew my mind. I loved that he included actual brain scans of people that he was working with and what was happening as they were doing the meditations to heal themselves or whatever their goal was. And this tied so deeply to magic, mysticism, the occult for me, because this just proves how much power belief has and how much meditation can actually do for your brain and your body. Take everything with a grain of salt, right? You don't have to believe every single little thing that someone says, but open your mind a little bit to the possibility. Last book that I want to include is the Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine. I actually have a ton. This is something that maybe you guys don't know because I don't show it on videos very often, but I do a lot of herbal medicine. I used to be, like, for a very brief period of time, I did a program for nutrition because I wanted to be a nutritionist. So I am very, very much interested in food, in herbs. So I am very much interested in the gut microbiome and all of that stuff. So I really loved this Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine. I really like how it's laid out. It's beautiful. Again, I have so many herbal books, so many, and so many like natural medicine books for sure. And me just being a healthcare practitioner in other areas of my life, it's just something that I naturally gravitated towards is medicine, because that's really important to me. But yeah, I just really love all the little profiles in here. So hopefully that's a good, well-rounded, I don't know, display of all the books that influenced my practice. I really should do a video of that at some point. Okay, I'm getting way too excited and I'm starting to talk way too fast, as I normally do when I'm excited. So I'm gonna reel it in. I'm gonna try to talk a little bit slower. So the next question is, my best friend has just passed. We're spreading her ashes at a beach. First of all, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're going through that. We want to do a ritual to connect her and her place of rest, the beach, to a pair of items. One item will remain at the place of rest, and the other is to take with us in order for us to have a form of connecting to her and her place of rest. Do you have any ideas on how we can go about this? The idea is like two sides of a portal. We want to use it to connect with her. So I'm not sure if this is advice that you still need, because these questions I know are from 2 weeks ago. At the time of filming this, it may be too late by the time you see this video. So I hope that your ritual went beautifully and it was everything that you needed it to be. What I would suggest for something like that is a key and a lock. That's often what I use to really tie myself to a certain person, place, or thing. So what you would want to do is do a little ritual beforehand to marry the key and the lock together. So usually I would, if I'm wanting it to be for just me, I usually sleep with the lock and key around a necklace. Like I'll have it on me as I sleep at night, and I will sleep with it for 3 nights in a row to really kind of get it to mesh with my energy. But if you're wanting this to be a talisman that's used by multiple people, maybe you think of a way to do a different sort of marrying ritual. The whole point of the marrying part of it, before I explain the next part, is really just to consecrate this item. You really just want to make this item sacred, assign it its purpose, you know, things like that. So you can look up a bunch of different ways to consecrate items and just do, I mean, you could do a simple thing as taking it, passing it through a smoke, chanting to it what you want it to do for you as far as unlocking portals. And then what I would do is I would take the lock and bury it or throw it out to sea, since this is going to be a beach, but leave the lock wherever it is of the place that you want to access, the place where you end up spreading those ashes. And then anytime you want to access that portal or that energy, you would use the key in ritual. And so the key, the idea of it is that you are unlocking that lock that is somewhere on the beach where those ashes were spread. Again, you can wear the key like a necklace around your neck if you want to increase the communication between you and that lock, wherever the lock is, or just use the key in ritual how you normally would. Let's say you sit down, you want to light some candles and connect to your lost loved one. You could just have the key present, sitting right next to the candle, hold it in your hands, you know, something like that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend a key and a lock. But again, so sorry for your loss. That is just, oh, that's so tough. What would you say has been the coolest or most wild manifestation of a spell that you have performed? I feel like I could take this question in so many different directions, because for me, the coolest manifestation that I've ever had from Spellwork is curing my depression, which I've talked about many other times on my other videos. I was depressed for 30 years of my life, tried every single healing modality that I possibly could, and then I finally decided, wait a minute, I'm a witch. Why haven't I actually used my magic to try to cure my depression? For some reason, I didn't put 2 and 2 together, and so I finally actually started to do that, and within 3 months, I cured my depression fully cured my depression. It has not come back, and it has been multiple years now since then. So if it were going to come back, it would have. To me, that's a miracle. Other people would think that maybe that's like a boring manifestation, but that was probably one of the most impactful things for me and the most incredible miracles that I ever experienced, especially after all those years of trying so many different things and nothing worked. And I'm not really going to share my personal rituals for how I actually did that. And I've explained this so many times in other videos, so I don't really want to get into it in this video, because I'm sure some of you are tired of hearing about it, but I don't really want to share my personal rituals because A, it is so personal. I do not want to offer that up for public consumption to the general public, because some people are rude, and that is just a very, very personal, sacred part of my life. And for 2, what worked for me probably won't work for someone else, because depression is a multi-layered, extremely complex issue, and you have to know what's causing the depression in order to even begin to tackle it. Some people it's just a chemical imbalance. Some people it's childhood trauma. Some people it's actually gut issues because the microbiome is out of balance and it's overproducing serotonin. And so your brain is not really having the serotonin that it needs to be happy. So there's like so many different reasons why somebody could be depressed. And so yeah, I don't want to give advice about that. But another thing I will say is some of the healing rituals I have done, I would personally consider miracles. I had people going in for surgery. It was a last ditch attempt. There was cancer, and the surgery miraculously got all the cancer out of their body. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, was Was that just like a miracle and really good luck? Or did my healing ritual for that surgery to go well, did that actually matter? And did that actually affect the outcome? I will never know. But if we're talking about like wild manifestations, there's some things that have happened that I just unfortunately cannot share on camera. I wish I could. Like if I had y'all at my house sitting around a fire, I would gladly share these stories, but I have to be careful what I put on the internet. But let's just say that there was a very, very bad person who is causing a lot of harm to someone in my life. I helped that person retaliate and send energy back to them, and it was wild. It was bad for them. Sucks to be them. Maybe they shouldn't have been so terrible. For those that don't know, I'm very pro baneful magic under the right circumstances. It's not something that I practice on a regular basis by any means, but I also have no problem standing up and asserting myself and establishing boundaries when needed, especially when it comes to people that I love. If they are being abused in any way, I will absolutely be there to make sure that that doesn't happen again and that they are protected. So now that I got that out of the way, I can't really share what happened to this person because again, I can't share things like that on the internet, or I probably shouldn't, but let's just say it was wild. That person absolutely had it coming, and good riddance. Do you practice the LBRP? If so, do you follow it to a T, or do you change it up a bit to fit your practice better? For example, do you call upon other entities instead of the 4 archangels? Yeah, so there was a period of my life when I was heavy into Golden Dawn stuff. I was doing the LBRP. For those that don't know, the LBRP is the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, and yes, that was something that I was doing every single morning and every single night religiously so I could just get it down. And that's one of the first things that you learn if you end up going into like a Golden Dawn style of practice. This is going to sound so contradictory to everything I've ever said on this channel because I am a chaos magician, and you would think that I would have modified the LBRP and I would have made it fit to my practice. But in my personal opinion, I don't think the LBRP should be modified at all. It is very specific to certain traditions and it should be left as such. So my question is, if you are wanting to do something like an LBRP, but you don't want to actually do the LBRP, then why are you doing it in the first place? You know, my question is more, are you looking for just some way of cleansing yourself and banishing negative energies? Really figure out what your actual goal is, because rather than taking the LBRP, which is really assigned to certain spiritual entities, rather than taking it and trying to change it to fit your practice, just pick a different ritual in general, maybe something that better aligns with your practice. Which is funny I say that, right? Because as a chaos magician, we're very eclectic. We usually take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, etc. But when there are very specific rituals like that that are assigned to certain archangels, it feels a little weird to me. And again, this is just a personal opinion. People can do whatever they want. If you want to take the LBRP, do something weird with it, you go for it. It's all about experimentation. But for me, I would rather just do a different ritual entirely and leave the LBRP sacred to the specific traditions that practice that a certain way. I hope that makes sense. I suppose you could use the inspiration from those types of rituals as in, okay, you're standing up, you're facing a certain direction, you're chanting something, and then you face a different direction, you're chanting something. So maybe you could take that element of it and then create your own banishing ritual or your own purification ritual that feels similar as far as bodily movements and chanting goes. But yeah, that's probably the only customization, or not customization, yeah, customization that I would do, whatever that word is. Hopefully you know what I mean. Does your family know that you practice magic, and should people keep their practices a secret? I think this is a total personal preference. I can see arguments for both sides. For me personally, I've always been a very, very private, introverted person, which is hilarious being a content creator and sharing so much of my life online. But there are a lot of parts of my life that I don't share online. You know, I'm definitely not sharing everything. But for me, my religion and spirituality, my sexuality, and my political stance, those are the 3 things that I don't personally feel like I have to share those with anybody if I don't want to. And sometimes it's completely unnecessary to share those types of things. Like if you're going back home for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it is, and you're going home to family members that directly oppose you politically or spiritually, sometimes it's best to just not have those conversations and to just love them for who they are outside of those two topics. Sexuality included, you know? I mean, there are some people in my family that absolutely would not approve of me being a pansexual woman. And so I kind of treat my spirituality and my magic as similar to that. There are some people in my family that know if somebody were to ask me point blank, hey, what's your religion and spirituality? Or hey, are you gay? Like, if people were to ask me point blank those questions, sure, I wouldn't lie. I would make sure that they know where I stand on that, but it's not information that I'm offering up easily, if that makes sense. If it happens to come up in conversation, and if I feel like I can trust the person and I know how they're going to react to it, then I will kind of divulge that information. So yeah, some of my family members do know. My mom is one of those people that she doesn't really get it. She doesn't disapprove, but she also doesn't get it. So she doesn't want to know any details. All she knows is that I do weird stuff and that I'm a little psychic. And she goes, that's my daughter. And then she'll ask me, she's like, hey, something's going on at work. Can you do a little thing for me or something? Can you like do a little prayer for me or whatever? Because she's very much Christian. And I was like, yeah, of course I will, Mom. I'll do a little spell, a little working for you. And she's like, okay, great, because so-and-so, you know, something's happening. So she's very accepting. She just does not want details. So it's just interesting dynamics. I think for me, the need to share every aspect or every facet of yourself with every single person is just too much. And I know some people would disagree with that and they really enjoy telling everyone what's going on with them. People really feel like it's important to express their political leanings, to express their spirituality and their sexuality outwards to everyone that they meet. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I think that's great for those people. I just personally don't feel like it's anyone's goddamn business. And if somebody asks me directly, we can have a conversation about it. So yeah, that's kind of how I treat it. It's totally up to you though, if you want to keep it secret or if you don't. Sometimes it's just easier with those people that you know would not approve of your religion, your spirituality, your sexuality, whatever it is. Maybe just don't have those conversations, or maybe assess if those are even people that you want in your life to begin with, you know? If they're not aligning with you, how important is that relationship? I'm just curious how you're holding up with school right now and how the little Plasmid is doing. Oh, thank you for asking. I'm doing great, thank you. I did have a meltdown last week. Just kidding. Oh my God, this quarter is so hard. This morning, so the Plasmid, I'm working on plasmids this quarter and I'm doing a lot of DNA cloning. That's what we're doing. And it's really fun. I finally got to the point in my classes where I only have like 2 labs left and I basically just come in to do lab work independently. There's no lecture anymore. I just come into a lab, I have my station all set up with all my tools that nobody's touching except for me. I don't even have to work with a lab partner. I just come in and do my work and I get to leave when I'm done. And it's so great. I feel like I'm in a class that actually makes me feel like I'm working in a lab and that I'm at a job and not necessarily like I'm sitting in a class listening to a lecture the whole time. So I've had a lot of labs for this degree, but I think I'm on the last 2 for this next segment, which is really exciting. But my little Plasmid is doing well. I've actually got a couple different strains that I'm working with right now, so it's really exciting. We get to do a project over the course of 3 months, and it's actually a project that helps the USDA. So anyone outside of the United States, that's a government organization, but it's just really exciting to actually be doing stuff that matters. So that's pretty cool. But thank you for asking. That was so sweet. Maybe a stupid question, but do you think starting a practice in your late 30s is too late to start? Maybe not a good question for the video, but a yes or no answer here would be much appreciated. I've been struggling with this. Okay, so first of all, I wanted to say no stupid questions ever, period. This is a very valid question, and no, it is not too late. In fact, I would say starting a magical practice or a spiritual practice when you're a little bit older is sometimes better because you have a lot more real life experience. You have a lot more critical thinking under your belt. You're maybe at a point where you're ready to go through a really meaningful spiritual awakening. And if you even look at ceremonial magic historically, a lot of people weren't even allowed into secret orders until they were like 30, 40, or sometimes even older. People had to go through life and establish themselves first in the mundane world before they were even allowed to be initiated into some sort of order. So I think it's definitely not too late to start. And the 30s are so young, so young. I know so many people that are in their 50s, 60s starting for the first time. So it's definitely not too late to start. I think it sometimes feels a little bit weird entering the witchcraft scene specifically when you're older because of how loud social media is when it comes to the witchcraft community, and you see all these really young, usually female creators. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a lot of young people, especially on TikTok, on Instagram, etc. And so it may feel like you should be younger going into witchcraft, but I personally feel like that's more of a loud minority, if that makes sense. They are the ones that you see the most often because they are the ones posting on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and wherever else. But there's so many people out there that I have personally met even that were a lot older when they started this spiritual journey for themselves. So I think that's totally valid, and if anything, you have your own skill set coming into this that maybe someone younger wouldn't have. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, it's just different, pros and cons, right? So yeah, hope that makes you feel better about it. What is the most impressing supernatural experience you've ever had? I don't even know how to answer this, but it's obviously going to be my work with spirits, and it's not even like one particular time where I can say, oh, that was the most impressive, that was the most mind-blowing thing ever. I've spent so much time with spirits. I have, when I was younger, I used to spend the night in graveyards. Don't do that. That's definitely, I don't think you can do that in a lot of places. I have done a number of seances now. I have spent so many nights in my room attempting to talk to the dead and work with all kinds of spirits, and I will say that every time is incredible for me. Even if it's not this mind-blowing Hollywood experience where, you know, the lights flicker, you see this demon come out and it's all dramatic and you're dragged to hell or something, I don't know. Anytime I work with spirits, it's just such a surprise and a different experience because I have found that spirits just interact differently depending on the spirit. Some it's more of like a visceral feeling, some it's an actual physical thing happening in your external environment that's separate from you. I mean, just the other night, for example, I was laying in bed and I have a window right next to my bed, and so I was laying down and there's the curtain was there, right? Because the curtains are closed, it's late at night, and then I saw a hand on the other side of the curtain. So here's the curtain and here's the hand. I'm over here on the bed, and I saw a hand kind of push into the curtain and make the curtain move like this. And so on the opposite end, you could see like the hand kind of coming through, and it actually moved the curtain. And so I looked over and my first thought was, oh, the cat's behind the curtain. So I got up and I went over to the curtain. Nothing there. Nothing was behind the curtain. The dog was downstairs, the cat was downstairs, and so was my husband. Literally nobody was upstairs except for me. And it actually made a scratching noise on the wall as it was doing that. So it was sound and movement, and I've had things like that happen so many times, and it surprises me every single time because of course I have spirits in this house. I work very hard to have spirits in this house because I love it when they're here. It just shocks me every time because I forget how cool it is to have those experiences. So yeah, I would say that there's just stuff like that happening all the time. This spirit in particular is brand new, and I don't know who or what it is yet. It doesn't feel negative by any means. It's all good energy, but it's kind of, I think it might be a little bit of a trickster spirit because there was another moment last week where I was in the bathroom. It was in the morning. It's like really dark outside. My partner was getting ready to go to work because he goes to work around 5 a.m. and I was getting up and getting ready for school. So I was downstairs doing my makeup in the bathroom, and all of a sudden I hear somebody mumble something like, Loki, come here. Our dog's name is Loki, by the way. Loki, come here, or Loki, let's go outside, or something like that. And it was very clearly my partner's voice. It sounded exactly like my partner's voice. And I was like, that's weird. Why is he downstairs right now? I thought he was upstairs getting ready for work. And so whatever, I just brushed it off. It was right outside the bathroom door. I had the door open and it was right outside. So I peeked my head out. No one was there. No dog, no partner, no nothing. And then my partner runs down the stairs because he's gonna start making his breakfast. And I'm looking at him and I was like, were you just down here talking to the dog? And he told me, no, I definitely was not down here talking to the dog. I was upstairs getting dressed. And I said, well, we have a spirit in this house that is using your voice. And so I think this spirit is a little bit of a trickster that likes to play games, which I'm totally fine with that. I think that's actually really fun and sweet. But you have those moments with yourself where you're like, am I crazy? Am I insane? I did not imagine that. I was fully awake. It's not like I was half asleep. I had already showered. I was very, very much awake. I did not make this up. I heard his voice say something. It was an echo of energy downstairs, and it wasn't his. So yeah, just stuff like that. I mean, when we're talking about the most impressing supernatural experience, I think it's just every time I work with spirits, because they're all so different, and it's just it's a roller coaster. In chaos magic, how does one differentiate between coincidence, confirmation bias, and direct results, especially considering belief is what gives it power? How much is left to intuition and interpretation? Congratulations on 2 years. I found you and I'm going through your backlog. Oh, thank you. Thank you, so sweet. Everyone's comments have been so sweet, by the way, so thank you for that. I would say with chaos magic specifically, it doesn't matter. It does not matter if it's coincidence, confirmation bias, or direct results, because the whole goal of chaos magic is to find the most efficient, streamlined magical practice as possible. It doesn't matter how you get there, and it doesn't matter what it is. As long as it works, that is the goal of chaos magic, because you want something that works. I know that's probably not the answer that you were looking for, but I just had to say that. With chaos magic, at least from my own magical practice, I try not to let my rational mind get extremely critical and try to figure out what's what, because the moment that you try to figure out what's what, you're already too much in your conscious mind and you're not enough in your subconscious mind and your creative, intuitive self. It's kind of a conundrum, right? Because you want to figure out what is coincidence, what is confirmation bias, and what are actual direct results. But the conundrum is that in thinking about this, you're already getting yourself way too much into your head, and you're not allowing yourself to actually experience and be creative and to get those direct results. It's kind of like one of those questions where when you do a spell and then you're like, okay, it worked, but was that the placebo effect? Or was it actually magic from an external entity that I was working with that made this spell successful? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't matter if it was the placebo effect or if it was the external entity that you were working with. What matters is that the spell was successful. And that's something that I personally had to work with for so long, because I am such a rational, critical thinker. I wanted an answer, right? I was like, okay, did this actually happen as a direct result from my spell work, or is this just placebo? Is this just coincidence or chance or whatever? You're probably never gonna know. And I still, after all this time, have moments where I think to myself, was that coincidence? I'm not really sure. And the hardest part is just letting go that need to know and just being okay with the results, whatever they may be. So that is where intuition really comes in my chaos magic practice, at least, to give me this gut feeling that I can go off of. And you can't really rationalize the gut feeling, right? It's the same thing if you have a gut feeling about somebody and you just can't explain why. You don't know why you don't like them, but there's something there. There's something there about that person that you just don't like, and you can't rationally explain it. That intuitive feeling of just knowing, you'll just have to lean into that a little bit more, and you may potentially just have to fake it until you make it. Even if you don't fully feel confident in yourself yet, try to pretend like you are confident in yourself and your intuitive abilities, and then it will become a lot more natural for you. And really, at the basis of chaos magic, you're using your belief as a tool for manifestation. So whatever you believe in is true and real, because there is no real objective reality. So whatever you believe in is totally valid, which takes a load off of our shoulders of trying to figure out what's what, because all you really need at the end of the day is your belief. I don't know how long I've been recording, but my battery is already at 50%. I need a new camera so bad. All right, so the next question, oh, hello, Blood, Sweat, and Steel. Hi, I just have to say hello. Anyways, have you worked with any amount of metal magic since your conversation with Bo? I think that was his name, at least. If you have, how was your experience with that? So yeah, Bo Thompson, I interviewed an occult blacksmith and we talked about metal magic, which was so freaking cool. If you're interested in that conversation, I'll link it down below. But we talked about working with like iron and copper and gold and silver and just so much cool occult blacksmith type stuff. I actually still have a couple things from him, these pendants. You can use these dustings in Spellwork, or you can wear them, which is what I do. But yeah, I have been utilizing a lot of metal magic. I think right now, I went through a copper phase, but I think right now I'm working with iron the most. You can see these little vials of metal in them. I have a couple of different types of metal, but I've been really loving the energy of iron lately. It's just so protective. It will kick out anything in your space that you don't want to be there. Iron is just so hardcore. So if you're So if you're that person that doesn't like spirits and you do not want spirits in your home, that freaks you out, get some iron, okay? Put a little bit of iron around the four corners of your property or something, because that metal is so great for just banishing spiritual entity. And I find that with all the spirit work I do, there are times when I really need to balance myself out and I need to have quiet time, if that makes sense. So I've been working with metal, or working with iron a lot lately. Copper is just fantastic as a conductor for energy in general. So if you pair copper with, for anybody watching that's interested, if you pair copper with a crystal, like you have a crystal around your neck and then you have it woven in copper or on a copper chain necklace, it's just so good for amplifying the energies of whatever else it's paired with. But yeah, I went through a silver phase, then I went through a gold phase because I wanted to connect to the sun. And just as a person who works a lot of planetary magic in general, anytime that I'm working with the planets, I'm almost always bringing in metal that pertains to specific planets, because that's super alchemical, right? If we go back to original alchemy and we're talking about the planets and their metal associations, I think it's so cool to bring metal into rituals like that. So yeah, I've definitely been doing that. I wouldn't say that I'm doing anything new or super enlightening that I'm gonna, share some new insight with you all. I'm basically doing the same stuff that I always do with metal, but it has definitely been really beneficial for me. What has been your most effective practical magic? Servitors, sigils, witchcraft, ritual magic, something else, etc. Oh my gosh. Honestly, I get bored so easily. I am not that witch that's going to have a tried and true method. I know a lot of people do. A lot of people have very specific spells and rituals that they do for certain instances because it just really works for them. I am so not that person. I have to be doing something new and experimenting all the time. If I don't, I feel like I'm dying. I literally feel like I'm shriveling up and dying because I need constant new stimulation. So for this question, it's so hard to answer because I've had success with all of it. Different witchcraft, candle magic rituals. I use sigils a lot in my practice. I will say sigils is something that is very effective with me. The only problem with sigils is that the energy dissipates quickly. Like, it's great for quick magic and for smaller to medium-sized manifestations, but the power from sigils, it really does kind of wane off pretty fast, if that makes sense. It's not like if I were to sit down and do a candle magic ritual and do a giant pillar candle and do a working around that, the effects of that would be a lot larger and a lot more long lasting. Or if I was gonna go bury something in my garden and maybe work with the earth element, the earth is so great. It's such an excellent element to bring really long lasting change, and it gives such a good foundation for things. But sigils, especially ones that you're drawing and you're using fire, because fire is already an element that's very quick to start, but very quick to like pitter out and dissipate, whereas earth is a lot more stable and steady. So with sigil magic, I find that the energy just, it spikes up really fast. You can get some good manifestation out of it, but then it plummets afterwards. And those longer candle magic rituals, like a 7-day candle spell or something, is way more effective for a larger working. I will say I have great success with servitors. I love servitors so much. I have a couple really long-standing servitors now. It's probably one of my favorite ways. The only thing I will say about servitors though is that they're a lot of work. At least for me and the way that I do servitors, I put a lot of work into these magical entities. It's so much work to where I really only use them sparingly. So effective, yes, very effective. But if we're talking about the amount of time and energy that goes into creating them and factoring that in, I would try to do a sigil first, and then if that doesn't do it, then I would move on to servitors. But I also just do a ton of candle magic. I do a lot of healing rituals with my poppet. I think poppet magic is really, really fun to get into when you're wanting to heal yourself, when you're wanting to heal another person. I really like to do a lot of spell work while I'm sleeping as well. So I do a lot, well, okay, first of all, I should probably say sleeping magic. I love creating little sachet bags to put underneath my pillow for specific intentions that help me dream about the intention so that I can manifest while I'm sleeping and I can implant that into my subconscious mind. So I like making little sachet bags for things such as like goal getter or something. You know, if I'm wanting to be oh my gosh, I've had this Britney Spears song stuck in my head. You know the, you better work B. I'm not gonna say the actual word, but it's like, you better work B, you wanna be famous or whatever it is. So whenever I'm having that mood where, where is this coming from? Where I wanna be a go-getter, I wanna go after my goals, I will make a little sachet bag and put in my intentions and some correspondences into that bag, and then I'll slip it under my pillow and then attempt to get myself to dream about it and really manifest things while I'm sleeping. That's one of my favorite low effort ways to do it, especially as a chronic fatigue person myself. Because for those that don't know, I do have CFS, and it's just so nice to be able to do magic while you're sleeping if you're a very low energy person. And then also, additionally to all of that, we're talking practical magic, I love going on journeys. I love doing astral work, spirit flight, doing a lot of stuff in the astral realm. I think that is so effective for getting change to happen, because you can converse with your guides or other spiritual entities, and they can really help you get shit done when you aren't able to do it yourself in the mundane world. So I really enjoy going on astral journeys. By the way, for anybody who's interested in that, I did a collaboration with Bente the Norse Witch, and we talked all about spirit flight. So I'll link that video in the description box. Okay, I think I have just decided that I'm gonna go until my battery dies. So we're just gonna keep on going with the questions. Any knowledge on why a spell intended for a positive outcome had a negative backfire? So there's always the possibility, if we're talking about negative backfires on spells that were supposed to have a positive outcome, obviously, I mean, something could have maybe happened with the wording, you know, something funky happens there, the way that you write your intention, what you're thinking about when you're manifesting, all that. But the first thing that came to my mind when I was reading this question is sometimes things have to get a little bit worse before they get better. And I know that really sucks to hear, but let's say, for example, you do a spell to get your dream job. Like you're gonna go in for an interview at this dream job, and you're so excited for it. And so you do a spell to get your dream job and to also perform really well in that interview. And then it backfires and you end up not getting the job. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it backfired and that it didn't work. It's just that that job in particular that you thought was your dream job actually wasn't your dream job, and your dream job is actually coming up next. So the spell did work. It actually saved you from working at a job that you potentially could have hated, that you initially thought was your dream, and it saved you and redirected you to your actual dream job. So I think perspective on this, like, time will tell, if that makes sense. Sometimes things do have to break apart so that other things can come back together, as cheesy and cliche as that sounds. That was the very first thing that came up into my mind. But also, it is important to pay attention to how you word things in your spells if you're writing down intentions. For example, I like to use weight loss as a good example here, because some people will say they want to lose 20 pounds or something. They do a spell and their intention phrase is, I lose 20 pounds, or I want to lose 20 pounds, or whatever it is. Well, the next day, the universe could give you the flu, and then you're vomiting for 2 weeks straight, or whatever it is. And sure, you lose 20 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever it is, but it wasn't healthy weight loss. It didn't feel good, that's for sure. So I think the wording has to be very precise, because the way you word things, it does affect the outcome of your spell. So I would look at your intention phrase a little bit further and see if there's a way that you can better specify it. So like, for example, with that weight loss, instead of saying, I lose 20 pounds or I want to lose 20 pounds, I would focus on my goal weight of what I want to weigh. And let's say I want to be a healthy 180 pounds or whatever it happens to be. And that way you're adding in the word healthy to make sure you don't lose weight in an unhealthy way. And you're also adding in a very specific number of what you actually want your body to weigh. So you would say, I weigh a healthy 180 pounds instead of I want to lose 20 pounds. Hope that makes sense. But yeah, time will tell. Who knows? It may not have been a negative backfire, and I really hope in your case that things actually do work out and that you are pleasantly surprised, maybe a year from now or however long it takes for the universe to kind of put those pieces in place for you. Are you going to do a video on the history of witchcraft? What resources do you recommend for learning this history across the globe? Absolutely no. Let me explain. Listen, I think that learning history is so important, but I've mentioned before, I hate history. I am not It's not my forte. It is not my forte. There will be no history videos from me, you guys. I mean, I may sprinkle in a little bit of history here and there to give context about whatever it is I'm actually talking about, but I don't think I could ever sit down and film a history video. That for me is just blow my brains out. Like, it's just not my thing. So I am not the best person to ask about something like that. But if we're talking about book recommendations, I would probably recommend, it's called The Witch by Ronald Hutton. I have not personally read this book, but I know so many people that have read this and said it's phenomenal, that he does an amazing historical account. I've heard it's very academic though. It might be a little bit more on the dry side. And then of course I would always recommend Drawing Down the Moon by Margot Adler, because that one's just like that's a classic. It is very Wicca heavy, but that's also a huge part of witchcraft history. So I think that might be, those two books would probably be a good place to start for witchcraft history. But if you're talking about like by region, you might more want to look at folk magic practices rather than witchcraft, because I find that this is just my personal experience with history books that are focused on witchcraft. They tend to be very Wicca heavy because Wicca was such a huge part of the scene for such a long time. It did so much for witchcraft. Whereas folk magic practices really go more into the traditions of the people by very specific regions. So you might want to look for some books specifically on folk magic, not necessarily witchcraft, if that's more your vibe. If you're wanting history across the globe that's not with that heavy emphasis of Wicca, but also just remember that folk magic is going to have influences from Abrahamic beliefs as well. There's a lot of folk magic practices where Christianity is woven in. There is definitely a much larger influence of Abrahamic beliefs in folk magic than there is in witchcraft. At least that has been my observation when reading history books. But again, not my area of expertise, never will be. In regards to my question, there was a time in our communities where everyone was claiming to be Wiccan or Pagan, but now with time past, there are more and more practitioners stating that they are neither of these practices or beliefs. I was just wondering if you might know why. Is it limiting? Did something happen? Are there better ways to practice witchcraft? Just anything you might know about it. Thanks and congrats again. Thank you. I'm actually really excited to answer this because I love talking about this. Okay, so I personally believe, first of all, we got a lot to unpack here. Part of me believes that it may seem like a lot of people are not claiming those titles anymore of Wiccan or Pagan because there is a very loud minority on various internet platforms that are saying that. But when you actually talk to people in the community, at least in my own experience, there is still a ton of people identifying as Wiccan and a ton of people identifying as Pagan. I think it's just in this online space, we've created this weird little bubble. And that's when you see trends happen, like eclectic witchcraft is so trendy right now. There was a huge trend to drop Wicca and become more of an eclectic witch. And I think mainly that was started because a lot of people found that Wicca was way too limiting and way too dogmatic. They didn't necessarily resonate with the whole god-goddess situation. It was a little bit too much ceremony, a little bit too much pomp and circumstance, and they wanted something that was a little bit more free and creative and ecstatic. So I feel like a lot of people shifted into eclectic witchcraft, and now that is the really big thing right now, because it allowed this freedom of being able to pick and choose what works best for you and your magical practice. You could take some of these folk magic practices over here, maybe add in a little bit of ceremony from something else if you wanted to, and you could really do whatever you want. And now, so we've seen this trend where people are leaving Wicca and being more drawn into eclectic witchcraft online. And now we're seeing this shift where people are no longer really wanting to call themselves eclectic witches anymore, and they're wanting to call themselves folk practitioners. And now folk magic is now having its moment. It's moment where people are really diving into their ancestral lineage, learning about the practices of the people, what their ancestors actually did, what healing modalities they had, what herbs they were working with, what sort of curses mom was cooking in the kitchen, you know, things like that. And I think that's so cool. I think that's so cool that people are connecting to their ancestral lineage and really figuring out the folk magic practice that fits right for them. And so it's not necessarily this eclectic witchcraft anymore. It's more based on an ancestral practice. And so I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with with Wicca or eclectic witchcraft or folk magic or whatever trend ends up coming up next. I think that we just have, like I said, a very loud minority online that's proclaiming these things of, we're moving away from Wicca now. Okay, now we're moving away from eclectic witchcraft, when really if you talk to real practitioners out in the world who are maybe some hippies in the forest that don't even watch YouTube, they are still very much pagans. I personally still identify as a pagan. And as far as the pagan term goes, I'm actually not quite sure why there are some people that have moved away from that. I know some people just have their own personal things going on in their life, and that's totally fine. They just don't resonate with that term anymore. For me, I very much resonate with it. I still think that there are a lot of people that resonate with pagan. But yeah, so I don't necessarily think that that any one of those practices is limiting. I don't think that something in particular happened apart from internet trends. That's what I think really happened. And I don't think that there's no one way that's better practicing, because it depends on you, right? Some people really like the ceremony of Wicca. They want to be part of a coven, they want to be initiated in, or maybe you do Wicca as more of a self-practice, that's fine too. There is a lot more structure in Wicca than there is in witchcraft, and just general eclectic witchcraft where people can pick and choose and do whatever they want. And so it depends on you. Do you thrive more on structure, and do you really enjoy those formal, more ceremonial rituals? Or are you somebody that's a little bit more eclectic and free-flowing and creative, and you want to kind of create your own practice? Maybe, like I said, you're drawn more to working with your ancestral lineage. You want to get into folk magic of a particular region, in which case, do what's best for you. I will say, there is a lot of people that just straight up don't like Wicca, and I think that is for so many different reasons that I cannot possibly unpack here. There's a lot of issues. People have a lot of issues with the founder, Gerald Gardner, by the way. So a lot of people have issues with him. A lot of people have issues with just how long Wicca dominated the entire witchcraft scene. Traditional witchcraft was so quiet in comparison to Wicca. I mean, there was a period, like when I started my occult practice in the late 90s, early 2000s, pretty much every single book available was very Wicca heavy. And I think that for a lot of people is a huge turnoff. If you read a book now and it has any sort of Wiccan influences in it, people are immediately turned off and they don't want to continue reading those books, because I think people are so sick of Wicca dominating the scene. And I don't personally mind that. If I pick up a book, and because I've never been Wiccan and I never have an interest to be Wiccan, but I do have Wiccan friends and that's great for them. Do what works. If I pick up a book and it has very Wiccan heavy influences in it, I don't care. I'm going to take whatever grain of truth I want from that book or whatever's going to work for my own magical practice, and I'll just leave what doesn't resonate for me. It's not really a big deal to me if there is Wicca influences in a book, but I do know that's something that really bothers a lot of people because they're just so tired of it. So there is that in component, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. I have questions on how you should prepare yourself before any workings. Personally, if it's a large working, I'll take a special bath beforehand. Also, can you explain if there's any importance to what you wear during a working, like hooded robes? Yes, oh my gosh. So I talked about this actually in depth. I'm not going to go in depth in this video because I've already talked about it before in my candle magic video. I will link it down below, but I did a full course on candle magic, and I spent a big chunk of that video just talking about preparing for a ritual and the purification process and wearing things like hooded robes and things like that. I think that what you wear and what you do before a ritual is so important, if not almost as important as what you actually do in the ritual. I think that proper care needs to be put into how you show up to the ritual so you can perform well. So yeah, do a ritual bath. I sometimes will smoke cleanse myself. There are times when I'll listen to music, jump up and down, and just shake off all the extra energy that I really don't want in my space. There's so many different ways that you can cleanse yourself. And the attire, of course. I mean, there are some times where I will literally dress up for my rituals. Let's say I'm working with a planet, I'm working with the sun or Jupiter, Mercury, whatever, and I will dress up in color correspondences that correspond to that planet. Or if there's a spirit that I'm working with and I know that they are drawn to certain aesthetics, like if you're working with Venus or Aphrodite or something along those lines, you might want to take a little bit of care in your appearance, how you show up to the ritual when you're working with Aphrodite or Venus. Brushing your hair, put on a little lipstick, you know, I'm sure that Aphrodite would love that as an offering if you showed up to the ritual after putting a little lipstick on and getting all cute and stuff. But beyond that, I think it's so important as a psychological trigger too, because if you have a hooded robe, let's say, that you only wear when you're about to do a deep, long trance, it's a psychological trigger in that every time you put on that robe, your mind already starts the process because it knows that what it's going to do next is go into a deep trance. So there are certain clothes that you can wear, like robes. You can do this with jewelry as well. Certain rings that you only put on for certain workings. There are certain jewelry pieces that I have that I only wear when I'm doing baneful work. And there are certain pieces of jewelry, I'm looking up at them right now, that I only use when I'm doing prosperity workings, or I only use them when I do spirit work, etc. And yeah, all of these things just serve as psychological triggers to help get me into the mood and where my mind needs to be before this ritual even begins. It just makes things a lot more efficient and streamlined. Again, so many different ways that you can prepare yourself prior to ritual. So for anybody that's interested, definitely go check out that Course in Candle Magic video. There's a timestamp specifically for preparing the ritual, or preparing for the ritual in the beginning, that you can just skip straight to. Ooh, what is your go-to coffee order? Sweet, bitter, chocolate, any favorite flavors? What a fun question. I love it. My go-to coffee order, I don't have one. No, for real. I was a barista, and I'm really picky about my coffee. I actually don't drink any caffeine anymore, though. I'm very much caffeine free. Maybe occasionally I'll have a little caffeine, but I do still miss the taste of coffee sometimes, so I'll just have decaf instead. But yeah, I was a barista for a long time, and I get bored. Like, my personality, I get so bored, and I have to switch things up. I have to, otherwise I'm dying inside. So I am not somebody that can eat the same thing multiple times. I cannot drink the same thing multiple times. No, it needs to be different almost every single time. I have tried every single combination known to man. I like it all. I like myself a little sweet treat, you know what I mean? That's just fun. There's actually this coffee stand that is next to my house, and they have this drink called Basic Witch, and it's so good. It's so good. It's like, I can't remember. They also have a lavender drink that's really good, but it's like macadamia nut with white chocolate and then something else. I don't know. It's a really, really good white mocha. I usually don't drink mochas. I usually do lattes, but yeah, I love a little sweet treat. There were actually a lot of questions about dragon magic. I am so surprised. Yes. Okay, so this question, just for example, is can you look the dragon in the eye when working with dragon energy, journeying with the dragon, etc.? And then there was another question, do you do dragon magic? I'm just gonna kind of lump all the dragon magic questions into this little segment. I am not at a place where I'm able to share. This really sucks. Yes, I have been doing dragon magic, and I would love to share it with you all. But there are certain entities that I work with that basically tell me that it's okay for me to share it to the general public, my personal gnosis or whatever sort of guidance I get from them. And then there are some entities, like the dragons that I've been working with in the astral, that and at this point in time, I'm not able to share that information with the general public. I'm hoping that will change at some point, but yeah, I just had to put that out there because I know I had mentioned it maybe last year sometime. I talked about going into that a little bit deeper, especially after doing some vampiric magic and working with my own inner dragon, which is completely separate. The inner dragon stuff for vampiric magic is very much about you. It's your personal inner dragon that's literally a part of you, and connecting to that was really powerful. But when working with these external entities and dragons in the astral and all that stuff, I actually haven't even read dragon magic books, so I can't even recommend them to you because I find that this practice is so heavily based on personal gnosis. I know there's like a lot of DJ Conway books. I personally have not read a single one of them, and I did that on purpose. I did not want to read any books on dragon magic because I wanted to go into this purely blind and just see what my experience was before I started reading everyone else's opinions and personal gnosis and books and all of that stuff. So I do have a plan to read all of DJ Conway's books at some point, but it's just not on my agenda for right now because I'm really on my way already, just with myself and no other external knowledge. I will say, with this question, can you look the dragon in the eye? I can't. It is probably one of the most terrifying entities I think I've ever worked with. That is saying a lot because I've done some sketchy shit. But truly, it's so, even just picturing it right now, it kind of like freaks me out a little bit. And it's not that they're mean or negative entities. Oh, I know. I'm really touching the line right now. I already feel it, that resistance of nope, shut your mouth, we're not talking about this. I get it, I hear you. But I will just say, I cannot look the dragon in the eye. I'm not saying that you can't or anyone else. I just personally can't bring myself to do it. yeah, hopefully I can share my experiences someday. I'm sorry that I can't give you more for right now. Just had a little intermission, a little snack, a little makeup refresh. So before I go back into the questions, I just wanted to say I've also been asked in other videos previously when I do the Q&As, because for those that are new to my channel, I try to do a Q&A like this at every major milestone. So I did it at, I think, 1,000 subscribers, 2,000 subscribers. Then I did one at 5, one at 10,000 subscribers. That one was long. Oh my gosh, I had to break that one into 2 parts. I think I did a 2-hour video and another 2-hour video or something like that. So if you enjoy Q&As like these, there were so many good questions in that 10,000 subscriber celebration. Well, even in the previous Q&As, there's always been an abundance of really awesome questions that are just coming from all over the place, and I really love it. But yeah, definitely go check those out if you want to. But I've been asked a lot why I don't just do a live stream and have people comment their questions when I'm live. I have anxiety, you guys. There's no way I cannot do a live. I don't understand how people do it. I cannot go live. There's no way. I get way too anxious, and thinking about how many people are potentially watching me all at one time makes me want to get sick. So that is completely out of the question. I really struggle with lives. I don't think I can ever do it. So it's nice to be able to like pre-record this, because I can go off and have a snack. I can go take a break anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed. As a more introverted person, it is more difficult for me to talk at great lengths. You know, I'm not as much of a verbal processor as an extrovert would be, so it definitely does take a lot out of me to literally move my mouth. And if I were to be on a live, it would be so bad. So bad. So anyways, that's why I don't do lives. I just kind of wanted to clarify that. I've been kind of picking these questions at random, but now I'm starting to get a couple repeats. So I hope that I answered the questions appropriately in those other questions that I already answered on the same subject. So anyways, how different is your path from where you first started off as a practitioner, and in what ways? I feel like I talked about this in that one video I did where I talked about my origin story as an occultist, because things have changed so much from going from a pagan witchcraft person, going into ceremonial magic, being a Zen Buddhist for a really good chunk of my young adult years, and having that mentor that I was talking about, and then coming out of Buddhism, going back into paganism, and then going into shamanism, and then going back into witchcraft, and then going into chaos magic, which is where I'm at now, which I feel like perfectly explains my entire experience. I don't know if I'll ever give up the chaos magic label, because even now, as I recently made a video this last month where I talked about how I kind of wanted to step away from witchcraft content, or just witchcraft in general, and move more into, just for me personally, ceremonial magic and occultism. And that's not to say I'm not ever going to do witchcraft content again, because that's not true. I'll still do witchcraft videos here and there. I'm still in a coven. It's still very much a part of my life. But this year I have really shifted back into more of a ceremonial perspective rather than a folk magic, eclectic witchcraft type of style. And that's still all part of chaos magic, right? Because I can bounce around from all these different traditions, and it's chaos magic because what I believe in, I can use that as a tool to manifest what I want. So it has changed a lot for me, for sure. Okay, my battery is going to die on this camera. So I think what I'm gonna do, I thought I had a little bit more battery life left. I think I'm just going to stop this video here, edit it, and get it uploaded to YouTube. And then at some point I will try to come back and do another Q&A. I don't know how timely it will be, because I have some other videos that are already scheduled to go out after this Q&A that I still need to produce and everything, and there's kind of a certain timeline that needs to be followed. Last time with the 10,000 subscriber celebration, I ended up answering, I think, almost every single question. That's why it's so long. That's why it was 4 hours long, because I was answering almost every single question. And this time I have even more questions. So that is so many. I'm so sorry if I did not get to your question. I really appreciate everyone's support. I cannot believe 40,000 subscribers. That's totally insane. Man, we didn't even get into tulpamancy or anything. We have so many things to talk about still. Okay, I'm gonna have to do a part 2. I just have to, because there's so many other really amazing questions in here. So I apologize it's taking so long, you guys. It's just, Unfortunately, these Q&As, as fun as they are, they take a long time to get out because of the amount of time it takes to edit this video and then also just film this video. I have to have a day where I have multiple hours available. So that's why it has taken me so long to get this video up. So I appreciate your patience. Anyways, thank you all so much for the support. I love you all. I'll see you in another video soon.